This is 4-2 using intercepts. Remember, if we have a y-intercept, it's where it's crossing, I'm down, let me point. It's where it's crossing the y-axis. And it has a 0 x value. If you're on the y-axis, you have a 0 x value. X-intercept, if you're on the x-axis, then your y is 0. You're nowhere on the y. You're at 0 on the y, basically. So when you have a y-intercept, the x-coordinate is 0. When you have an x-intercept, the y-coordinate is 0. So let me highlight. This is the most important right here. Okay, so we're going to be using intercepts in 4-2. Let's take a look at our first example. Find the x and y intercepts. So for this one, it's right on the graph for us. It's just asking us literally to find the x and the y intercepts. Well, this is where it's crossing the y. So the y-intercept has an x-coordinate of 0 and the y value is at 3. So that coordinate is 0, 3. The x-intercept is right here, like I highlighted, and the x-intercept has a y-coordinate of 0 and it's hitting the x at -2. The x-axis at -2. Okay, -3x plus 5y equals 30. In order to find the x and y intercepts, remember, if you have an x-intercept, the y value is 0. So when I'm finding the x-intercept, let me highlight this, then I'm going to put, that my y value is 0. So I'm recopying this equation, but plugged in 0 for y. And now I calculate -3x. 5 times 0 is 0, so I don't even need that. -3x equals 30. Divide both sides by -3, and x equals -10. So my x-intercept is -10, 0. Okay, in order to find the y-intercept, well, for a y-intercept, the x value is 0. So I'm going to be plugging in 0 for the x in this equation. -3 times 0 is 0, so we don't need that. So we have 5y equals 30. Divide both sides by 5, and y equals 6. So I can write my y-intercept as the coordinate 0, 6. You could always check this by graphing that line to see. The school store sells pens for $2 and notebooks for $3. The equation 2x plus 3y equals 60 describes the number of pens and notebooks you can buy for $60. Graph the function and find its intercepts, and what do the intercepts represent? Okay, so let me go through what we did before. So if we want the x-intercept, then the y value is 0. So 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 60. Well, we don't need that part, so we get 2x equals 60. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 30. Okay, what that means is that we have purchased, for the x-intercepts, we have 30, 0. Remember, the x represented pens, so 30 pens and 0 notebooks for $60. That's what that represents. That's how many pens we could buy if we buy 0 notebooks with our $60 that we had. Okay, let's look at the y-intercept. So for a y-intercept, the x value is 0. So 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 60. We don't need 2 times 0. So 3y, because it's just 0, 3y equals 60. Divide both sides by 3, and y equals 20. So my ordered pair for the y-intercept is going to be 0, 20. What this means is that I could buy 0 pens and 20 notebooks for $60. And I just got those wordings because it said that the 2 pens for $2 became 2x. Notebooks for $3 became 3y. So that's how I know that the x is pens and the y was notebooks. So this says to make a table and graph, so I'm also going to just write this equation down here so that we can see it while we make our table. If you remember, I said it was a lot easier to isolate the y when doing a table value. So the first thing we do is move 2x to the other side. It just becomes an opposite sign, negative 2x. So we have 3y equals negative 2x plus 60. Divide everything by 3. And I'll write what we have left here. Y equals negative 2 over 3x plus 60 divided by 3 is 20. And so I can pick whatever I want. If you remember, we went through this in class about getting rid of this fraction. I would pick negative 3, I'd pick 0, and I'd pick 3. Ooh, negative 3 is not going to work in this case actually because we're talking about purchasing a number of pens and notebooks. We wouldn't purchase a negative amount. But you can do multiples of 3 then, so 6, 9, etc. So if I put 0 in, then I get y equals negative 2/3 times 0 is 0, plus 20 is 20. Y equals 20. If I plug 3 in for x, I get y equals negative 2/3 times 3 is negative 2, x, oops, not x anymore, negative 2 plus 20, so I'd get y equals 18. If I plug 6 in, we end up getting, let's see, negative 2/3 times 6 plus 20. 6 is 6 over 1. These cross cancel, so I get y equals negative 4 plus 20, which is 16. And if I plug 9 in, negative 2/3 times 9 over 1 plus 20, these cross cancel, 1, 3, and I get y equals negative 6 plus 20, which is 14. And you can see this pattern is going to continue. If I pick 12, we're dropping by 2 in the y values, so I know my next one's going to be 12. If I pick 15, I know my next one will be 10, etc. Okay, so the x values, were pens, and the y value were notebooks. So for my x value, if I purchase 0 pens, then I can get 20 notebooks. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so if I get 0 pens, I can get 20 notebooks. If I buy 1 pen, that leaves me enough for 18 notebooks. 2 pens, oops, sorry, that was for 3. 3 pens, and I could get 18 notebooks. 6 pens, and I can get 16 notebooks. And this pattern would continue. And I know that I would end up at 30 pens, 0 notebooks based on my calculation. Okay, before it took a long time to make a table of values to graph the line, but now you can just use intercepts. So to find the intercepts, to get the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for the y. And then we don't, 4 times 0 is 0, so we just use the negative 3x equals negative 12. Some people call this the cover-up method, and they just cover up the opposite of the intercept that they're trying to find. So negative 12, divide both sides by negative 3, and x equals 4. And I do the same thing for the y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x when I'm finding the y-intercept. That's gone, so we get 4y equals negative 12, divide both sides by 4, and y equals negative 3. So my coordinates should be at 4, 0, and 0, negative 3. Let me graph that, 4, 0, and 0, negative 3. And look at, I have a line. Just connect those two dots, and there's the equation of my line. Okay, for example 3, it says write the equation in standard form first. To write this in standard form, that's ax plus by equals c. What we need to do is first move the x to the other side. It becomes the opposite sign. So negative 1/3 x plus y equals negative 2. The next thing we want to do is we want to make this a whole number. If I multiply everything by negative 3, then I can get rid of this negative and the denominator. And so I get negative 3 times negative 1/3 is positive 1x plus, or minus actually, because negative 3 times y is negative 3y. I'm distributing this negative 3 to everything. Equals, and negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. So now this is in standard form. Standard form is when x is in the front and it's not a fraction. So now it's easy to find the intercepts, right? I could just use the cover-up method if I want to here. So if I'm looking for the x-intercept, then I'm going to cover up the y, and I already see that my x-intercept is 6. Let me write that again. Excuse me. If I'm finding the y-intercept, then I'm going to cover up the x. And so I get negative 3y equals 6, divide both sides by negative 3, and y equals negative 2. And I can make these ordered pairs, 6, 0, and 0, negative 2. And I can graph that, 6, 0, and 0, negative 2. And there's my line.